It sounded like praise. Stephanie White, head coach of the Indiana Fever, sat in front of the cameras and called Caitlin Clark a generational talent. But then came the line that shattered the illusion. She said the team's recent success without Clark was a blessing in disguise. In that moment, everything shifted. What should have been a simple update about an injured star turned into a bombshell. Because when your coach says the team is thriving without the #1 overall pick, the player who single-handedly revived WNBA ticket sales, viewership, and national buzz, you're not just raising eyebrows. You're setting the whole league on fire. Was it a clumsy quote? A shot across the bow? Or something deeper, a quiet attempt to rewrite the story of who really runs this team? Either way, one thing is clear. Caitlin Clark's future in Indiana is suddenly surrounded by whispers, tension, and an uncomfortable question. Is the franchise already preparing for life without her? On paper, Stephanie White's comment could pass as harmless, even strategic. Caitlin Clark is a generational talent, she began, a statement no one in the basketball world would argue. But just as quickly, she pivoted. The team's momentum without Clark, she said, had been a blessing in disguise. That one phrase cracked the foundation beneath the Fever's carefully curated narrative. Because when your head coach implies that the absence of your most valuable player has somehow unlocked the team's true potential, it doesn't read like praise, it sounds like a warning. Not to the fans, but to Clark. It told the world that Indiana may be rethinking how, or if, she fits into their long-term blueprint. And what's even more unsettling is how quickly the media ran with it. Headlines popped up praising the new chemistry, celebrating the system finally clicking. But dig just a little deeper, and the message becomes clear. This wasn't about team growth. It was about control. On the surface, the Fever's 5-game win streak without Caitlin Clark looked like proof of progress. Sports networks praised the bench depth. Analysts marveled at the balance. But let's look at the receipts. The teams Indiana beat during that stretch? The Mercury, in turmoil. The Wings, riddled with injuries. The Storm and the Sky, both resting starters. These weren't powerhouses. They were placeholders. And yet the media clung to those wins like gospel, crafting a narrative that the Fever had figured it out without their biggest star. But here's what they didn't mention. With Clark, Indiana put up 102 points against Atlanta. Without her, just 58. That's a 44-point difference, the kind that exposes just how fragile this new system really is. And it begs the question, are we witnessing team growth, or are we watching a mirage? If you've been watching this unfold and feel like something doesn't add up, you're not alone. Hit that like button if you believe Caitlin Clark is still the cornerstone of this franchise, and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest stories shaping the WNBA today. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Caitlin Clark isn't just a scorer. She's a gravitational force, the kind of player who shifts the entire geometry of a defense the second she steps on the court. When she's out there, defenders panic. Double teams rush her before she even crosses half court. Entire game plans are rewritten to contain her. And in that chaos, something magical happens. Her teammates thrive. Shooters like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull suddenly find themselves wide open on the wings. Post players like Aaliyah Boston finally get space to breathe, no longer swallowed up by collapsing defenders. This isn't coincidence. It's cause and effect. Clark doesn't just create plays, she creates opportunity. She forces opponents to stretch, scramble, overcompensate. And that's when the Fever become dangerous. So to say the team is better without her, that's not analysis. That's amnesia. Because without Clark, there's no gravity. There's no fear. And most importantly, there's no future. At the center of this unfolding drama is more than just an injured rookie. It's a battle of ideologies. Stephanie White is a system coach. She believes in ball movement, controlled pace, shared responsibility. Her vision of basketball is methodical, predictable, and fundamentally structured. And then there's Caitlin Clark, chaos personified. She doesn't just disrupt defenses, she disrupts systems. Her creativity can't be diagrammed. Her instincts can't be bottled. She turns broken plays into highlight reels and turns routine possessions into electric moments. And for coaches who value structure, that kind of unpredictability can feel threatening. Because when Clark plays, she is the system. The ball goes through her. The game bends around her. And here's the uncomfortable truth. When she went down, White didn't just lose her star, she got her team back. The rotations tightened. The system clicked. The coach's voice grew louder. And the team's success, however limited or contextual, became validation. Not just that they could win without Clark, but that they didn't need to build everything around her. But that's not progress. That's power consolidation. And it's setting the stage for a storm no system can contain. For a player who was once the face of every WNBA broadcast, Caitlin Clark's sudden absence has been wrapped in an eerie silence. No clear injury timeline. No medical specifics. Just vague phrases like day-to-day and prioritizing long-term health. And for fans, that silence is deafening. It doesn't sound like caution, it sounds like strategy. Because while Clark sits, a new story is being written in her place. Articles praising team chemistry, analysts spotlighting balanced offense, and sound bites that conveniently forget the storm Clark brought with her. The longer she's out, the more the media subtly shifts, from celebrating her dominance to questioning her fit. And buried in all that noise is a quiet agenda. Reclaim the spotlight, redistribute the power, and reduce Clark from superstar to just another piece in the puzzle. It's the oldest play in sports: control the message, reshape perception, and when the player returns, hope no one remembers how essential she used to be. But this time, the fans are paying attention, and they're not buying the spin. You don't draft a lion and expect it to act like a house cat. But that's exactly what's happening in Indiana. The longer Caitlin Clark stays on the sidelines, the louder the whispers grow. Maybe she's too ball dominant. Maybe she needs to adjust. Maybe, just maybe, the Fever are better off without her. It's not just misguided. It's a dangerous rewriting of reality. We've seen this before. Allen Iverson, Russell Westbrook, even Sabrina Ionescu early in her career, electric talents forced to shrink themselves to fit into boxes built for lesser players. And what happens when you ask a generational talent to dim her light? The whole team suffers. Because brilliance isn't meant to be rationed. It's meant to lead. And Caitlin Clark was never just a scorer. She was the engine, the spotlight, the magnet pulling eyeballs to a league that desperately needed attention. Recasting her as just another piece isn't about strategy. It's about fear. The fear of a star who shines too bright, too soon, for a system that still doesn't know how to handle greatness in real time. Caitlin Clark isn't just a rookie, she's a marketing machine. Since her arrival, the WNBA has seen record-breaking jersey sales, surging ticket demand, and TV ratings the league has never touched before. Road games are selling out not because of who the Fever are playing, but because of who's wearing number 22. National broadcasts that once buried women's basketball in obscure time slots now lead with Clark's highlights. Why? Because she doesn't just play, she draws revenue. She's a walking brand. And brands like that don't stay where they aren't celebrated. If Indiana thinks it can minimize her impact, sideline her presence, or quietly reframe her as a role player, they're not just mismanaging a roster, they're gambling with the financial future of the franchise. Because here's the truth, someone will build around her. Someone will give her the keys, the spotlight, and the freedom to lead. And if that team isn't the Indiana Fever, they're not just losing a player, they're losing everything she brought with her. From the momentum, to the merchandise, to the millions of fans she introduced to the WNBA. This isn't just a team chemistry issue. It's not even just a coaching dilemma. What's playing out in Indiana is a cultural turning point, a test of whether the WNBA is ready to embrace the kind of greatness it claims to want. Because what message does it send when a player can dominate college basketball, resurrect a struggling franchise, elevate everyone around her, and still be treated like a disruption instead of a solution? The message is clear: fit in or get sidelined. But Caitlin Clark didn't come to fit in, she came to take over. And now, with her return on the horizon, the Fever face a defining choice. Do they recenter their future around the player who put them back on the map? Or do they double down on a system that only works when expectations are low, opponents are soft, and the spotlight is dim? Because when the bright lights return, when the playoff pressure kicks in, when the media frenzy ramps back up, all eyes will fall on Clark. And if she's forced to dim her brilliance just to keep a fragile balance intact, the Fever won't just lose games, they'll lose trust. From fans, from future stars, from a league that desperately needs its icons. Caitlin Clark was drafted to lead a revolution, not ride the bench, not share the spotlight. not ask permission to be great. She is the system now. And if Indiana forgets that, they're not just risking a season, they're risking a legacy.